New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Rev Briz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for July 5th. It's a holiday weekend, or is it? Or is it just a midweek day to, I don't know. Let's blow up some shit. What do you think?
Well, I know it's hard to believe for me that we're halfway through the year. I tell you that right now.
Yes, that is very true. Welcome, folks. This happens every Friday morning, 7 a.m. Mountain Time, and we are halfway through the year, as hard as it may be able to believe. And yes, Americans are blowing up shit all over the place. Based on the amount of explosions in my neighborhood last night, I'm concerned how much shit's going to get blown up tonight around these neighborhoods. So interesting time. Anyway, let's get right into it. Z, as you said, we need to start right at the top today. There seem to be serious questions around Joe Biden's ability to candidate, to run, to
govern, yeah.
To beat Joe. Well, is it to govern, or is it just his ability to beat Donald Trump? Because I think those are two very different things.
Okay.
I
mean, in the sense that to govern, to govern means you are relying on your whole crew, right? I guess. But
you don't have to be an orator. You don't have to be the best orator in the world. You don't have to be in the best shape in the world. You don't have to be right. But what we need is somebody who can beat Donald Trump. And is that possible at this point? Is there anybody that is going to polarize the American public the way that man has? Is there anyone that's going to be able to draw the kind of numbers that polls suggest he's drawing, and that the amount of money that his support? I heard somebody say, it's Stormy Daniels in her interview with Rachel Maddow. She said, he doesn't care about money. You fine him all you want. You put fines on the man all you want. He don't care. He's going to have other people pay for it. He's going to get other people to contribute money to pay for all those fines. What we've got to do is we've got to publicly embarrass him.
Yeah, and that ain't gonna really happen. I mean, because he's unembarrassable. You know, he I mean, he's a person that loves the limelight. Obviously, you look at his past with his Donald Trump show, whatever, the Apprentice.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see how people does not see him as just the actor he was in that show. And the one thing for me that's, I don't know, have you heard or seen this Project 2025 that the Republican Party is supposed to be running on?
Yep. And honestly, it's a little too late to do anything about.
Oh no, it's in full effect.
Yeah.
It's in full effect, and he is the, you know, he seems to be the orchestrator of that, and it's in place from the Supreme Court now down to, the money that they have, and the statements he made about restructuring all of the different agencies. So it will be an interesting story to see how this works out. And I don't know if the Democrats have enough to combat it.
That's the thing. This project, I actually heard about. I didn't know it by this name, by Project 2025. But 2-3 years ago, we knew that conservatives were trying to elect officials and put people in place that would be sympathetic if Donald ever got back into office. And we know they were stuffing the court. The Supreme Court this week proved how far up Donald's checkbook they might really be, right?
Yeah.
It's and that's the really scary part of this to me, honestly. I don't get scared by politics often, but when a guy named Kevin Roberts, who is the head of the Heritage Foundation, which are the publishers of Project 2025. So, folks, if we're catching you up on the conversation, this is just an effort to make sure that Trump can burn the government to the ground on day one. That he can come in on day one, and that's their other rally cry right now: is day one, day one. This plan is set so that there is a list of people Trump could appoint, and the list of people that will be immediately fired and dismissed, so that Trump can create his little dictatorship here. And what's scary is over this past week, Kevin Roberts, the head of the Heritage Foundation, publishers of Project 25, in an interview on Steve Bannon's War Room, said publicly, "We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be." Like, what kind of political gaslight bullshit is that? And if that's not a cryptic warning, if that's, I mean, that feels like incitement to insurrection. The man's calling for a revolution.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, and Linda puts in that, it wasn't Trump. No, the primary backer is the Heritage Foundation. Actually they're like excuse me, they're like 400 scholars who've contributed to this. I don't know how. There's like 40 institutions that have helped fund this and do the research. It's basically a think tank, right? It's a think tank with plenty of money that came up with all these things. Basically, as I've seen it now, if you haven't seen it, go out and grab it. It's 920 pages, and it covers all the agencies. And it's basically, to me, time to give everything back to the states, which will put us back into a place where we were when the Civil War started. The crux of the Civil War was federal government wanted to end slavery. The southern states did not. And so a war broke out between the states and the Fed, right? Now, if we go back to that now, we're going to be in a similar situation for that type of stuff to break out. Now, some people might say, "Oh no, well, that's not going to happen." Well, stranger things have happened.
I can't think of anywhere in my life where one group of people called for revolution and vowed to keep it bloodless. and even this guy, right? They got more guns. the far right has a lot more guns stockpiled, I believe, than the far left. I don't have any data on that, folks, but you just kind of look at things in the world, and
No, I think that's pretty obvious.
it's right. It's the "don't make me pull this trigger" game, and
Yeah.
and to me, it's ridiculous that anyone in our nation thinks that kind of behavior is appropriate, and that now, if it was to me, if it was a reputable news agency, they would take that down. They would not have let that get on the air. However, we're talking about Steve Bannon's war room. Steve Bannon's war room. Steve Bannon went to prison this week. Granted, it was somewhat of a slap on the wrist for contempt of court, spending 4 months in a federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut. That place is pretty much a country club. It's not like he's going to spend 4 months in Rikers Island learning about what prison life is. He's going to spend 4 months learning about how to run a business from a small confined space is what he's going to learn in 4 months. But how to whine about how he's being treated. But
and here is here is a challenge that I see, right? So there's so much stuff going on with the political climate and landscape and atmosphere, and pick all the words, it's there. There's the challenge with, which we started with Biden. Can he effectively run and win a campaign against Trump? And if not, who replaces him? Do we get, is it Kamala Harris? Is it Gavin Newsom? Is it Meg Whitman, which I think are probably the top 3 candidates? And
3/4 of the Democrats just said who? When you said Meg's name, most of the Democrats out there, I bet you have no idea who she is. They barely know who Gavin Newsom is. They had no idea who Kamala Harris is, to be honest. We don't see her. Nobody covers Kamala. The vice president is again a lost seat that all the public knows about Kamala is what the far right has tried to brand her with.
And that's, I blame that on Joe.
Yeah,
because Joe did not give Kamala any programs that she could head that would have a wide range exposure to the public. He gave her immigration, and I'm like, really? The worst thing, the most fierce, fired up topic in the country, and you give it to her, where all she is a talking piece. She can't make any policy. She can't do anything like that. So why give her that? And it doesn't give her any international exposure to begin to build allies and relationships with foreign leaders. So, which is what, one of the things that happens when you get ready to go to president is, what are your foreign relationship skills? And what are your foreign relations, if you will, that you can lean on or that you can glean to be a valuable asset when you become president? She didn't have an opportunity to do any of that.
You're very right. It's
like, I don't know what she did. I don't know what programs or what
I don't like saying it, Z, but she was it would appear more and more she's been a token. She satisfied a couple of demographics, and Joe made history, and just like any award that you might be given, you make history, you get the statue, you put it on a shelf, and it starts gathering dust. And in a lot of ways, from my perspective, that's what the Democrats and Joe have done with Kamala Harris. They got the award.
Yeah.
They got the votes they wanted. They got the history, the note in the history books, and then they put her on a shelf and let her collect dust. And now, if the Democrats need her, if she's right, she could very well be the one that saves democracy here and goes up against Donald and beats him. But they haven't given her, and I agree, they haven't given her the opportunity to gain the real experience that she would need on a global stage. And that
And you
makes
think
me
about it. I was going to say, you think about it. She is a lawyer. She was a prosecutor in California, which means she got some chops. I mean, in a big state like, California, New York, or Michigan, if you become a DA in those big states, big cities, you got the chops and understand the legal aspiration. I mean, the legal ramifications of things, how the Constitution is set up, how to be a bulldog when you need to be a bulldog, how to be a lamb when you need to be. I mean, that position gives you what you need to be in politics. Now, why would you not utilize that to argue positions, to make cases? I mean, that's what lawyers do. They go and study the stuff and present a case. She's had no opportunity to do any of that.
Yes, I agree. Had no opportunity whatsoever. This makes me wonder, how do we go about getting a poll of all the world's leaders,
right?
And ask them straight up, who would you rather work with? Who do you trust? Who do you feel would do a good job for America? Right? And we got a pretty good idea who someone like Putin might check in those boxes. But I think it'd be really valuable information to be able to say, look, folks, how many countries are there on the planet? Right? 88% of the world leaders would vote for Joe if they could, if they lived in the United States. Right? Now, that could backfire against a democratic movement. We might find that there's more world leaders out there that align with what Donald, it would appear, is attempting to do. But every single day, we slip closer and closer to authoritarianism in this country, specifically when we allow people to run around crying revolution, saying that we're already in the midst of an American revolution and it will remain bloodless if those that we don't like will let it remain bloodless. It'd be really interesting to find out which way the world is tending right now. In Britain this week, the British people stood up and said no to the Conservative Party and overwhelmingly elected Labour Party candidates in their national elections. That, if you read Fox News, that's a horror show of left-leaning liberals winning. But if you look at it, it is, many are touting it as a move against the far right authoritarianism that is rising up around the world, and it's not just here. So I think we need to be an example for the world and saying no thank you to dictator Don.
Yeah, and there's I think it's unfortunate that there's so many issues we're facing. I mean, you look at something that Donald says doesn't exist, which is climate change. Call it what you want. It is obvious that we are in terms of climate. I mean, a third of the country. I mean, right now, I think the population of the United States is somewhere like 340 million people. And when we see on the news that 125 million people or 140 million people, a third of the country, are dealing with extreme heat, like hundreds and above, for a couple of days, and then that's starting fires and dealing with crop production and dealing with animal husbandry and all these things. We don't look at that, right? And we get sidetracked. And so that's just one of the things. You look at the hurricane that just barreled, that just came through, and now it looks like it might hit Texas. We aren't even in the real hurricane season yet. The real hurricane season starts into August into September. Now, if we got 110, 118 out in weather, that ocean temperature is going to be boiling. And so when you get a storm coming off the coast of Africa, it's going to be a problem.
And this was, I saw something, and I hadn't had a chance to actually confirm this, but the thing I saw said that this was the earliest Category 5 hurricane ever, right? So the first day, the first real, B. So we're at the second hurricane of the season, and it's the earliest there's ever been a Cat 5 in the series. It's never the second one of the year. So we're seeing that acceleration. You're right. And as you were sharing, I'm like, it is kind of silly that as Americans, this is what we're arguing about. We're arguing about whether Joe is qualified to lead and how dirty Don is, and that's our argument versus how do we cool down this planet? How do we protect our future generations from the devastation? Is it going to take the fact that Miami and Louisiana and Miami and New Orleans need to be underwater before we start paying attention to this stuff?
And I tell you, I was in a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Luis. For the audience, go look it up. Hurricane Luis in 1995. I was in St. Thomas. And it came through. I mean, not St. Thomas, St. Martin.
Okay.
It wasn't no joke. And it is absolutely terrifying to see that natural phenomenon come through. You can't do nothing but pray, right? For people who don't pray, I bet you they pray if they get stuck in one of them 4 or 5s, because you're at the mercy of nature. And if these start happening off the rip, then it's going to be, I mean, you think July, August, September, October, we got 4 more months of hurricane season. Doesn't end to November. So, I mean, that's just one thing. Now we got volcano eruptions, right? You got the one in Iceland. There was just one in Italy. There's the one over in Hawaii, right? The whole planet is reacting to our negligence, if you will, of understanding that we're in a symbiotic relationship. And if we mess that up, the stakes could be dire.
Yeah. Very true. And again, if we look at the election, it would appear we've got one party that could care less about any of that, and the other party gets ridiculed because they do care about that.
Yes. It's a problem of I think leadership and management, right? The difference is, I think management wants to just deal with things, and they want to move them around and make things, appear to be a certain way, or might even be a certain way for a small moment of time. But a leader has a far-looking, a far-reaching approach to things, so that they take into consideration more information, more data points when they make a decision. And, right now, I don't know if the Democrats have any, I don't know what the long-term strategy is to combat some of this stuff. I could be wrong.
unfortunately, I think the Democrats, quote, leadership of that party is focused on one thing, and that's putting Joe Biden back in the White House. It doesn't feel.
What's the strategy then? I mean, that's fine, but what's the strategy given the way he showed up the other night? Now, he has the interview tonight.
I don't think there's strategy anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. To me, that says there's no leadership. They're just trying to manage the situation right now. They got the interview tonight, which is supposed to be unscripted, no teleprompter. I mean, just when you look at the debate, just as a snapshot, Donald Trump was at his best. He didn't go off ranting and raving.
He was.
He kept himself in a box, if you will. He was animated. He was energetic. Whereas
everything he said was a lie. Everything he said was a lie, but he stayed on the script of his lies. He continued to make his points without overtly attacking Joe, without starting any of those lock him up type of chants or, let's go Brandon chants. He didn't do any of those off the cuff, oh yeah, well screw you kind of comments like he did to Hillary that would he looked good. I don't like saying that, but he did.
He did. Yeah. And Joe looked like a deer in headlights.
Yep. Exactly.
And so, anybody given the global ramification that are on the front. You got Putin and Kim Jong-un making partnerships, giving each other dogs and cars. They're solidifying that. You got the stuff going on in the Ukraine. You got the stuff going on in Gaza. You got several things going on in Africa. You got all of these different military complex issues going on. And how do we begin to try to negotiate? I mean, right now we're at this standstill. I mean, I didn't even bring up China. And their whole thing with Taiwan. We need somebody that can have that can find a common thread. Like, okay, we can play these silly games and do this to and fro, but if we blow up this planet or we devastate this planet, we don't have enough equipment to get everybody off this planet to go to Mars or wherever the heck they're trying to go after they kill this place.
I believe we are at that nexus. We're at the crossroads, folks. It really does feel that way. And I keep coming back to an idea, right? Being for something and against nothing. Being for something, show us the people that are for something and against nothing. And I know that it can sound in our conversations like we're against this or against that. And I've been really working internally. I've been really kind of doing a deeper dive into this concept of, is it truly possible to be for something without being against the things that are against what you're for? Kind of the enemy of my enemy type thing. And truthfully, to sit on our hands and do nothing, to not let our voices be heard, is, I think, the biggest malpractice of it all. Interestingly enough, I haven't started talking about this much, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I've heard in the hallways of New Thought, if you will, there is a quiet little process happening to see what it would take to get a permit for a march on Washington. And to call out the people that believe that we're not supposed to be involved with politics, to call out the people that would rather lament than act, to call out the people and call all of us out into the streets at one time to say, we're here and we want to see a positive outcome. We don't want to see a bloodless revolution. We don't want to see guns in the streets. We don't want to see. So don't we have to be against something, even in our being for something?
I find it interesting that there are a good number of new thoughters who would be considered ex-hippies. And one of the things that class, if you will, had an affinity for was raising the flag of injustice, raising the flag of inequality, raising the flag of abuse or misuse. And now a lot of those individuals have gained some financial footing and gained some material stuff. And they're like, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm just going to, sit back and pray. And yeah, okay. But no one's going to stop you from praying. But you got to, as Ernest says, you got to treat and move your feet. You have to have some action behind your thoughts, prayers, and and ideologies to move forward. I mean, we can't just. We know, for those who understand the whole concept of prayer, if you will, we know that works. If you know it works if you work it, right? We know that. Those who've experienced it and seen it work. But in addition to that, if you look at those that did work, there was some action that took place. Whether it was you had to change something in your life, you had to put yourself in a new environment, you had to take on a new attitude.
Right.
And that's how it's worked. There is no one-sided coin anywhere on this planet. There's always two sides. And you have to deal with both. That, like you was, being for something and not for nothing. Well, there's always two sides. There's always going to be another side. The question is, are you able to understand the true relationship between one and the other? And as the Buddhists say, walk the razor's edge. You got to walk that edge to keep the balance, to keep the goings and comings not too far left, not too far right. Sometimes we need a little left leaning action. Sometimes we need a little right leaning action, but we don't want to go overboard. And that's where we're headed right now, if I was to take a guess.
Keep our eye, yep, right. Absolute positivity, even in the face of absolute destruction.
Yeah.
Keep, right. Don't let go of what we know. And treat and move our feet.
Yeah.
And if that moving of the feet, right, I agree with you, right? And gone are the days where we can just pray about it. It still can work. It still works, right? It works if you work it. And on the individual level, I can do all my prayer work for my own peace, but I have to be also in a place of praying, of doing that prayer work for the bigger issues, and doing that prayer work while moving our feet. Phone banking, voting, marching in the streets, letting our elected officials know what we believe and what we desire. You've heard me talking for the last couple of years. If the Heritage Foundation can come up with Project 2025, why can't New Thought create a think tank and come up with Project 2029 that outlines these are the people we want to see. These are the people that we believe have what it takes to make the change.
Well, and I would even say, absent a person, right? Let's put forth the ideas, because if we start dealing with personalities, then we're going to get into, I believe, we're going to get into a thing, right? Well, I don't like that personality. They're too talkative. They're not talkative enough. They're too jovial. They're not jovial enough. But if we have an idea that's clearly articulated, that's laid out in a sense that it gives you points, but gives you some breath to move in and out. now we can, because we know the system is not static, it's dynamic. So if we give them a box, they can't get out. But if we give them something that can breathe, we give them something that can move forward in light of the environment and the atmosphere that we're working in, now we're moving in a different ball game. And right now we need that. Right now we have it appears we have no alternative. If Joe gets on this thing on Friday and crashes, not Friday, well, that's today's Friday.
Right.
If he gets on this interview tonight and does not do well, that is going to be
there's going to be a lot of people pooping in their pants is what's going to happen.
Say that again.
There's going to be a lot of people pooping in their pants is what's going to happen.
You know, there was the statement that he said he needs to go to bed earlier and things like that. I mean, I get it. I mean, I slept 10 hours the other day. I was there, it was just so comfortable. I don't want to get up. You know, I just laid there and kind of daydreamed after I woke up. But, you know, there are times when I won't get but 3 hours of sleep because we got a crisis going on, or I got something to do, and I won't be able to get a good night's sleep. I still got to function.
I don't care who you are. Most people do not perform well after 10 or 12 hours in the day. So I'm all for Joe setting an example of saying, hey, I don't schedule things after 8 o'clock because I know I'm not at my best.
Yep.
I'm nowhere near as old as Joe, and I know that. After a certain point, it doesn't do no good for me to try to talk to you. I'm not going to make any sense. I'm not going to remember what we talk about. It does me no good to try to get creative. That's that time, so I think that's part of another piece that we expect to be called a leader. You're expected to be on call 24/7. And I get it. President of the United States is a much different job. And I'm pretty sure that if Joe goes to bed at 8 and a crisis happens at midnight, he'll get his butt out of bed and go handle it and deal with whatever it is. But we make so much about how somebody is unfit rather than looking for where they are fit to lead. I gotta believe in Joe, because if I don't believe in Joe at this point, then I'm guaranteeing a Donald Trump victory. I can't go vote for Marianne at this point. I can't go vote for RFK at this point. Not that I would anyway, but I can't vote for anybody outside the main two, because at this point the system is rigged. One or the other of them are going to become president. Again, unless Joe drops out, in which case that puts a lot of extra votes in. A lot of people on the fence will turn into Donald Trump voters in a minute. And so I gotta believe for what we want, and vocally, respectfully, spiritually say, and not that.
Right.
I can
I mean,
be for them because I'm
one
not
thing
that.
I think is clear is that it is being highlighted now that we as a people, we have to work together. We have to, there is no one person here that's going to solve this. I mean, we have to work together. That's just the bottom line. And if we can't do that, if we can't find a way, in spite of our difference, in spite of our approaches being not the same, we must figure out a way to make things happen.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
And not take down the whole planet in the process.
I want to bring our friend Linda into the room. I'm all for treating all people as of the divine whole. I am for treating Mother Earth with honor and treasured companion, among other things. I am for treating all with respect, honor, and dignity. Right on, Linda. Amen. Right. That's what we want to know, that we are for that. And I am for recognizing and treating all people as part of the divine whole. And sometimes the divine whole busts a gear that needs to be replaced, or grows a cancer that needs to be excised.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the divine whole gets a cold and has a bad debate performance. Sometimes the divine whole does some pretty nasty things that maybe we don't agree with. More than ever, I think we have to let our own recognition of the divine truth vote. I would like more choices, but
yeah,
this is what is.
And we have to begin to, I think, realize that we as a people have to figure out that there's a sameness that we have that should supersede all of the other crap. and when we allow that not to happen, when we allow our commonality not to be a rallying cry to pull us together, and not be astute enough to say, these people who are pulling all these strings, they really don't care about us. They care about our votes, but they don't care about us. And we need to begin to find someone who cares about us.
Yes. Folks, I'm looking at the time and we are closely running out of time here today, but this is such a great conversation. And I want you to know we're going to continue to dig deeper into this conversation in a number of ways. A dear friend of ours, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, has recently written a book called Freedom from Discord. It's all about how liberation theology is revealing itself through new thought and whether that's going to continue or not. And we have an interview with him on Tuesday, part of our New Thought Today program. It happens at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, we invite you to join us. It's going to be a great conversation. I have now officially finished Dr. David's new book, and I'm really excited because I think a lot of what we're talking about are things that he's raising a flag. He's casting a vision, if you will, of what we can become to be more to be aligned with the New Thought philosophy in how we support the liberation of the oppressed people across the world. And I know that is part of the political future of this country as well. So we're going to get out of here for now. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing. We got a full day of broadcasting today, so stay tuned. here on the New Thought Media Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment with Sekou Writes and Be Your Own Hero, as well as all of our normal programming today. I'll be back this evening with the good news at 5. Until next time, folks, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.